Butana, of course, on the other end, you have exceptional black professionals that unfortunately suffer due to the stereotype that has been created that, black people don't deliver. And it's especially more harmful in certain sectors than others. I mean, you think about construction. So if you are a black-owned construction firm with, let's say, the grade 9 rating, which I understand to be the highest rating, and you deliver, you're having to compete against those that have entrenched themselves in industry. And more often than not, because of these perceptions that black people don't deliver, they do a shoddy job, then automatically you become disadvantaged by that.
Cathy, I'm sensitive to that, and I'm aware of that as well. But they are also gatekeepers. Black people gatekeepers. You will be surprised to be held by a white person. And these people, all the union and all those things are gatekeepers. They're frustrating you. But I'm sensitive to that. I'm alive to that. But all I'm saying, that's my opinion. He's expressing his frustration. And I understand the frustration that black people that are competent, that are going through. I understand that. I accept that feedback. But please, accept this feedback as negative as it is as well. That's my point.
Okay, Butana, let's leave it there. Mike, you're out in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, thank you. Go for it.
Just to say, your summation of the judge's comments when you started the show, or just after, you understand what I'm saying, I think you summed it up perfectly. And I think the other callers that have called in have summed it up perfectly. It happens across all sectors that you get people of different colors and races that are very proficient, and you get other people that are not that proficient. And if a person is a paid professional to represent somebody in a murder case, he should have his priorities right, especially of such a case, such a long period of time, that people want closure. And sometimes you have to put your personal feelings aside or ambitions aside and do what is right. And I don't think the judge was racist at all. And I think the comment yesterday that KG made on your show in your replacement, which is that the judge needs to sit down and do some introspection. He doesn't need to do any introspection. He stood up like a man. He apologized to those that he offended, and let's move on with life. It happens. White people are also just as incompetent across the color board. You get competence and you get incompetence, and it's to root out the incompetence. There's nothing racial connotation to it.
Mike,
it's just calling people out.
And what is the space that you believe we create as a society for that negative feedback without it being trapped by the issues of race that we're still grappling with?
Because I think he nailed it. He said something that people across all specters have been wanting to say and have been too afraid to say because afraid of being tarnished, of being racial. So he stood up, and maybe in the instant that he was in the court, he was quite fluid in what he was saying. It wasn't like he just was ranting. He was quite fluid in what he was saying, and he probably thought it through. He said, "How can you do this to everybody? Not only to me, but to your client that you're representing, and to the family. You got to." I think he was being perfectly honest. I was at a doctor's room a couple of weeks ago, and the one partner was away, and the other partner had to look in on the partner that was his patient. The receptionist, in 45 minutes, the one patient called, or family of the patient called him 3 times. And instead of raising the urgency to the doctor that maybe he should just put the patients that are waiting on hold for a couple of minutes, go and see what the problem is, he only went an hour later to investigate what the problem was. So there again, I mean, I don't know who the patient was, but the doctor involved, both of them are European, white. So here again, you got a situation where somebody's stressing out about the well-being of their family. And, I've got patients to see, well, maybe the person in the hospital that's had an operation needs a doctor more urgently than us sitting in a waiting room.
Mike?
There's no level of urgency.
I hear you loud and clear, Mike. Thanks for that contribution, Mike, out in Durban. And the point that Mike is raising is so key. It reminds me of the issues that we often deal with in the finance segment, right? Where sometimes you have to follow up with the banks, and people have different types of issues when interacting with organizations, and more, there seems to be this impression that unless you know somebody on the outside, you are dealing with a machine or you are dealing with a call center. And unfortunately, what that means is that the resolution to whatever issue you're raising is going to take time, and that it is going to be on you to keep following up on it until it's done. Because if you don't, there will be no resolution. And yet, you're probably paying for that service. So what is the space in the room that we create and we are creating as a society for that negative feedback? Because there are people in those positions. And those people are people that are you and I. But how do we begin to say, okay, we're not showing up in the best way that we can, not only for the positions that we are in, but for the people who are expecting some kind of service from us. Incognito, you're in Durban. Good morning.
So I want to say, Cathy, and I greet all the South Africans who are listening. Check here, Cathy. Yes, this is such a topical thing, but let me just say, I agree with the judge as well. You see, look, Cathy, I was born in the 90s, right? 1992 to be specific. During the transition, I went to like these white pre and primary schools, and we started seeing here comes the neighborhood. There was a shift. And until today, I can see the decay in our infrastructure. And when I listen to politicians saying that we don't have money, and yet again, there's money being returned to Treasury, there are people who are not working. And I think to myself, when I hear my father saying that when he was still in school, that's when he got his first employment. My mother says that her school principal started teaching whilst he was still in standard 10 of today's grading system and all of that. Now, Cathy, there was something that the judge said when he was apologizing, because, he kept name dropping and saying any other thing. And I think that the apology, it might have been sincere, but he also wanted to drill in other things, because he said that his wife told him to apologize, and he asked, must I also apologize to the foreigners? Do you remember yesterday, Cathy, when you stood in for Ashraf, that Zimbabwean, or I don't know his nationality, but he's not a South African, who said that he was taking our own state institutions to court? That's the level of brazenness that they've got now in our country. We can't run our country, Cathy. That's what he was saying. It was more than just the lawyers or the legal fraternity. He was talking about the rot, starting from the top, because we can't have people who are gallivanting in our country, busy complaining about our services. And yet when you go there, this guy actually say, Ethel Trollip, I think, he said that the hospitals, 70% are occupied by foreign nationals. And when our people have to go there to give birth, they have to give birth on floors. There was this story about babies being put in incubators and some are being put in cardboard boxes. That's the level of decay I'm talking about, Cathy. The judge was not wrong when he said that. And sometimes, you might say things indirectly to touch other factors as well. And this is what I think he was talking about. Because he asked, must I also apologize to foreigners? Because South Africa is just that way now. And we are having this problem. And when people talk about foreigners, they try to sensitize things. Look at what's happening in Europe.
Okay.
Italy is having a problem. even Los Angeles. Okay, Cathy, thank you.
Incognito. Let's leave it there out in Durban this morning. Papi, you're calling from the Northern Cape. Good morning.
Thank you, and everything.
In fact, let me do this, Papi. Let me take this break, and then I'll be back with you after this.
We spend a lot of time looking for deals, but we don't invest the same time in our health. Your health buys you more time with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that rewards you for living healthier with lower premiums and more cover. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You know, ever since I adopted positive energy-saving behaviors, the National Grid is thanking me. You should also adopt this lifestyle, and your pocket will thank you too. Simply switch off non-essential appliances and lights when they're not in use. Reduce your geyser temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. Replace inefficient lights with LED lights. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to help sustain our energy grid and contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
It's a tough day for Mark. Tight deadlines and challenges everywhere. But Mark can rest easy, because when he bought his Hino 700 2845 truck tractor, he received a complimentary service plan covering up to 210,000 kilometers for short haul and up to 280,000 kilometers for long haul. Nice one, Mark. Visit your dealer today to find out more about this limited time offer. Hino, all the way. T's and C's apply.
Mzansi, walala wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're still tuned in to The Talking Point. It's a national round table as we lead conversations that move us. You can call in on 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Papi, you're in the Northern Cape. Good morning again.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for giving me the platform to share my frustration with the nation. For the record, I'm not going to be anonymous. My name is Mukai Papi Seshuma from Kuruma, and I'm not representing anyone. I'm doing this in my capacity as a concerned Kuruman resident. Just thought I should clear that one up, just in case there will be some sort of witch hunt that will be established after my interview. Cathy, we have a learnership program in Kuruman that is funded by the Department of Labor, whereby together with their agencies, Mine Workers Development Agency, have left the Kuruman youth in a state of depression due to their incompetence and breach of contract. This program started on the 10th of February, and to date, some of the learners are yet to be paid their first end. That is the predicament that we are facing in Kuruman.
The learnership started when, Papi?
On the 10th of February this year.
Okay. And
Yes.
and so far, no monies have been received for it.
Out of 1,500 students, only plus minus 800 got paid. That's one step end. The rest, they remain hopeless.
What was the agreement?
Yeah.
What was the agreement around how these students or these learners would be paid?
The agreement is that the students signed a 3-month contract, whereby at the end of each and every month, the student will be paid a stipend. But that never materialized. From the 10th of February up until the 28th of May, that's when some of the students received their stipend. And that is after 2 months and 3 weeks, they only received that stipend, and others nothing up until now.
What is the department saying about it?
The department is mum. The last time the department issued a statement, it was on the 8th of May. And that was because they were held hostage. The students were fed up and they held the department and this agency. They hold them hostage. That's when they issued a cheap-looking statement. I'm saying cheap because they didn't even get the name of the agency that they awarded the contract to. They didn't get it right. They wrote a complete wrong agency, whereby they lied and said that they will be making payments on the 16th of May. Till now, they've never honored that. They've gone mum. In Kuruman, the student tried to close the Department of Labor on this past Thursday and Friday. And then by Monday, the manager, they came with the police. They are working side by side with the police now because the students, they want answers. They are not getting any.
Sure. It sounds like quite a volatile situation there, Papi. Let me put you through. Let me put you through to Kanya, and she'll take your details, and we'll have to see how we follow up on this issue, non-payment of students. We've dealt with issues of this nature a number of times, so let's see what the answers we can get for you might be. Of course, it's very frustrating for the learners who still have to come and be part of the program on a day-to-day basis, but equally so probably for the service providers too, who are having to carry the cost of running and administering the program. And certainly there would be an expectation that there's better guidance and answers from the department around what exactly the holdup might be. So we'll follow up on that particular issue. Kumbulani, you're in Centurion. Good morning.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. On the issue of the judge in the Senzomewa case, look, I don't have a problem with the fact that he was frustrated about the lawyer who said he was going for he was going to go to this Comrades Marathon. What I do have an issue with is this statement about this is the country that is run by blacks. Because for me, that has these undertones of self-hate. I do not understand why he had to put it like that. And the thing is, for me, it struck a chord because I'm currently having to deal with these problems that emanate from self-hate, where you find black people will deliberately make sure that a black person doesn't get any opportunities, and instead a white person does. I've actually even gotten to the point where I thought maybe I should do my research into trying to understand how Hendrik Verwoerd actually managed to get us to convince ourselves that we are inferior. When did this happen and how did it happen? I have worked with black people and white people in my life, and I've met a lot of very competent black people, very competent white people, but at the same time, I've also worked with very incompetent black and white people. What's with this whole thing about black people seemingly being inferior and incompetent? I don't get it. Thank you.
Kumbulani, thanks for that contribution, short and to the point. Sekhatli, you're in Mangweng. Good morning.
If I may change today and switch it to the health side, I'm a little bit worried, though I trust the likes of Dr. and the Honorable Minister Mohlahlana. Yesterday, after I heard that there is a bit of COVID signs in India, and then where he said we need to calm down. Yes, it's good that he's just taking us down a bit, but we don't want to be ambushed like before it's time that we start to close the borders or screen every items that are coming in and out, and also the people that are coming from there, coming in, or the people that are making trade, especially we know that it's winter, and then there is some blankets that will be bought from India coming to various countries, countries. So with our country, I know we relax too much. I think it's time that we don't have to be ambushed again, so we need to be careful. So we have already seen 2-3 people dying from what is looking to be a flu, deaths are related to flu. So we know that COVID is related to flu. So please, we are just...
Sekhatli, do you think that in the context of COVID, are you worried that it would be as bad as it was 4 years ago? Given the fact that we now have vaccines, people have been vaccinated.
No. Truly speaking, with the experience that we are having now, with the experience that the countries are what we experience, we will do better. But at least we must just start now, because previously we did not know what kind of a thing is that. And then until when we lost so many lives. But yesterday when he said, just cover yourself, stay at home, he makes so those cautious responsibilities in terms of like be careful there. So, but from the government side, we need them to start as well and to get ready, because we don't know how is it going to ambush us, or is it still going to be something like that. But to answer your question, or do we think it's going to be as bad as it was previously? No, I think we are wiser, because we are dealing with something that we know now.
Okay.
But we need to start planning right, get ready.
Okay, Sekhatli,
thank you.
Let's leave it there. You can hear the trauma from COVID-19 is still there in Sekhatli's voice. It's like we cannot afford to go back to where we came from. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, minibus taxi swept away by flood waters in the Eastern Cape found, and local manufacturers pressured to shift to low-carbon operations. Good morning. Authorities in the Eastern Cape have recovered the minibus taxi that was carrying the 10 missing learners in the Mthatha region. The minibus taxi was swept into a river in Dikolini yesterday, following floods caused by heavy rain in the province. 9 people have since lost their lives. Search and rescue operations have continued for the missing learners. Reporter Fundisa Mhlekudi has more on how the vehicle was swept away.
We were told by the MEC of Education that there were 13 learners, all from Jumba Senior Secondary School in Tabase, and they were heading to school. What we know is that on top of the bridge near Efata, the driver could see that the water was too much, and he called the owner of the bus and told them that they cannot cross because the water is overflowing. And as they were standing there, the bridge then collapsed. That's how it got swept away with the learners inside.
A woman and a man have been arrested in Bloubergstrand in the Western Cape for allegedly sexually abusing their daughters. Police spokesperson Amanda van Wyk says the daughters are aged 3 and 8. She says the suspects face charges including rape and sexual grooming. Several electronic devices were also seized during the arrests. Van Wyk says the 2 children have been placed in a place of safety. She says the suspects will appear in court soon.
The victims were rescued during the operation and have since been placed in a place of safety. The operation was carried out by a multidisciplinary team comprising members of our National and Western Cape Serial and Electronic Crime Investigations units and officials from the Department of Social Development, supported by the FBI and Homeland Security investigations. The suspects were located at a residence identified through joint investigative efforts. The investigations remain ongoing.
A truck is on fire next to the R59 near Heidelberg Road in Johannesburg, where a protest is underway. Gauteng traffic police have advised motorists to use alternative routes on the road. Spokesperson Selo Maremane says motorists should also avoid the Klipprivier and Heidelberg roads.
Gauteng Traffic Police will be on the scene to monitor the situations. Members of the public are warned that any person who commits looting will face the full might of the law.
Results of a study by Nedbank and the National Association of Automotive Component and Allied Manufacturers has highlighted challenges local manufacturers are facing. These include pressure to shift to low-carbon operations or risk losing their competitiveness, as well as a lack of access to affordable technology and capacity to measure emissions. It has led to uncertainty around reporting frameworks and the cost of compliance. Trade, Industry and Competition Department's Lester Boer.
But it is always not an easy space because we do have to deal with the issues of multilateralism. So we sit in the WTO, so we cannot just ignore that we signed to these things. We cannot just tomorrow go and all of a sudden do as our esteemed world president and put 110 tariffs there on the world and say we're going to stop everybody from coming in here.
And finally, top Chinese and U.S. negotiators say they've agreed on a framework on trade. This comes after 2 days of talks in London aimed at resolving tensions. China's international trade representative described the talks as rational and candid. The BBC's Stephen McDonnell has the details.
What it is a means for Beijing and Washington to somehow get back on track to move forward, to keep going with these trade negotiations. Now, it's described as a framework. I mean, who knows what that means? And also, we don't even know what's in the framework. Well, I mean, what areas does it cover, apart from how widespread it is to be? However, it does seem to include a loosening up of the restrictions on Chinese companies from selling rare earths to the US. And in the other direction, it does seem to involve an easing of US restrictions on supplying microchip technology to China.
Recapping the top story, authorities in the Eastern Cape have recovered the minibus taxi that was carrying the 10 missing learners in the Mthatha region. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show as we lead conversations that move us. It's 8 after 10 o'clock. Coming up in this hour for Citizens Corner today, we're focusing on RDP housing and in particular the delivery of RDP houses. There have been some challenges affecting different communities, particularly in the Gauteng province, where people have been promised RDP houses, later given material to build those houses for themselves. But it seems that there have been issues even with that, because some of that material in some instances was incomplete, in some instances it was taken away. So we just need to get to the bottom of what is the status of delivery. And of course, we've got two spheres of government that would be operating. You have your provincial government, and then you'd also have your local government. And both are, tasked with the delivery of RDP houses. So where do people then go when they need answers? That will be part of what we unpack within the next hour for Citizens Corner. Before we get into that, lots of different WhatsApp voice notes and text messages on the various conversations we've been having on the show so far this morning. Let's play some of those voice notes and then we'll get into our 10 o'clock conversation.
Hi, Cathy. It's Chambasa from Sasolbeck. No, what the judge did is unacceptable. That's not correcting. If you can't direct the message to the person you have a problem with, you can't involve everyone. He's just disrespecting the black fraternity. He's got the right to call out when lawyers where he's working are misbehaving, but he can't generalize. It's unacceptable.
Good morning, this is Cathy and SAFM listeners. This is Iseko Anthony Peter from Orange Farm. This is Cathy. I want to send my condolences to the people who lost their loved ones during this weather, with these floods. I mean, it's a call now to our government, to our premiers, that they must look after for the people, more especially with the road infrastructure. With the Eastern Cape, we are always behind with everything. It is a call now to do the right thing. They must not prioritize the corruption. It is now time for them to fix all the mess up. They must be straightforward now. Thank you, Sis Katie.
Hi, good morning, Katie and your producer and all the listeners of SAFM. I like to comment regard to the thing that is happening there in Tata in Eastern Cape. It's very painful, like seriously. So Oscar Mabuyane, as a Premier of Eastern Cape, must stop to talk now. He must do something to those families. He must lift up the socks and make sure that he's doing the big grains, so that must take all those water away, because this Premier is always promising, but it's nothing happening. That is my concern for today. See you from Cape Town. Thank
you. Good morning, Cathy. Okay, on this instance of Judge Rata Mohlahlana, can you please bring the stats down of the black lawyers and the white lawyers and check who mostly stole the money of the people who were applying for the ref? Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. I think this judge, is just racist against his own people. I mean, I've used black lawyers, and I won cases using black lawyers. So there's nothing wrong with black lawyers. It's him who's got a problem.
Good morning, Cathy, and the fellow listeners. Hope you're doing well in this devastating weather. I totally agree with the judge in this matter. Every time in this country when you address something that is bothering you, you become a problem. Stop fighting the judge. The judge was correct. I thank you. This is Yolaki from Mechanism.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. that's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
There are routines we all love. Morning and night skincare routines, exercise routines, even new routines like meal prep, journaling, and chemo. That last one hit differently, didn't it? The truth is, over 99% of cervical cancer cases are linked to the human papillomavirus. So if you're a woman between 15 and 44, act now. Ask your healthcare provider about the HPV vaccine. This message was brought to you by MSD.
Mzansi, Walala Wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We continue the conversation then this morning looking into RDP Housing for Citizens Corner. It was really triggered by a call we received from one of our listeners, Nora, who's out in Heidelberg. She says that they were given free stands and promised building plans for free, but none of those promises were ever fulfilled. Here's a conversation that took place between herself and my colleague, KG Mwegetse.
To talk about the free stands, free stands that we received here in Batanda in Heidelberg. So
Okay.
there's about seven.
Are they
yes.
called Ikacheleng? Are they called Ikacheleng?
Yes,
Okay.
it's called Ikacheleng Land Release.
So you
Program.
get a free stand and then you build for yourself. Is that why they call it
100%.
Ikacheleng? Okay,
100%.
got
You
it. Yeah.
build, you build
Yeah.
yourself, yes. So
Yeah,
there's about
yeah.
700 rand that were released and given to the community. I'm one of the beneficiaries.
Okay,
So-
700 stands, you said.
That's right.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Beginning of last year, we received our title deeds with Panyaza Lesufi. The whole song and dance happened, and all was good. Then we had to go and open, they were going to give us building plans for free, which never came. Then we ended up having to do the building plans for 3,500 rand. Then you have to pay 2,200 rand to take it to the municipality. Another 1,200 rand to open an account. All in all, what they're asking us to pay is about 30,000 rand. Mind you, all these stands, the people that got the stands are earning from 3,500 rand up to 7,000.
When they gave you the stands, were there any sort of T's and C's that came with the stands? Was there any fine print you had to read to sort of understand what you were getting yourself into?
Yes. We were told that you would have to...
And what did it say?
You will have to build for yourself. The government will not build for you, which was fine. And also that since we are the beneficiaries who earn very little, we were going to get special rates as a municipality. And that hasn't happened.
Special rates from a construction company that the municipality appoints.
No. When you submit the building plans, they charge you per square meter when you are a normal buyer. What I've done is I did my own building plans because they haven't given the free ones, which I paid.
How much have you spent up to now?
Up to
How
now,
much
I
have
paid.
you spent?
I spent 3,500 for my building plans, and the municipality charged me 2,600 rand to submit them. And then they charged me 580 for zoning certificate. Then I paid another 1,200 rand to open the services account because you can't submit building plans without having that account. Now,
And I
after I've
suppose,
done
like you said, you fall into that cap of earning the amount that was stipulated. That's how you ended up getting this.
All right, so that was the conversation between my colleague KG and Nora, one of our listeners out in Heidelberg. Let me invite onto the show then the Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements, Tasneem Motara. Tasneem, good morning to you. Thank you for making time for us this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and thank you so much for having me.
Look, I think that there's obviously quite a lot that maybe has evolved in the delivery of housing, particularly when we're talking about RDP houses, that not all of us may have been keeping up to speed with. The process that people generally know and mostly be familiar with is that, government appoints service providers who build these houses, they're handed over to beneficiaries. So to the extent that there are programs where government is issuing stands to people and saying that they must build their own houses, would that still be falling under what we call RDP housing? Would it still be the same dispensation?
So no, well, yes and no. So the RDP is a fully subsidized house. That means you essentially get a full house for free with the title deed, and that is for people earning 3,500 or less, South Africans who are 18 years and older, and they would apply on the National Housing Needs Register. And if they meet that criteria, they then get approved for a house if they are a housing projects in the area, and then we allocate. So what this program, Ikagileng, was trying to address was the missing middle, if I could call it that. So those who earn above the threshold to qualify for an RDP or a fully subsidized house, but they earn too little to almost get a bond from the commercial banks. And this product was really, it's a self-built product. What we provide is a serviced stand. So it's a stand that has got both water, electricity, as well as sewer connection. And you would then be required to build within a period of 5 years. And this is for those who earn between the amounts of 3,500 and 22,000 rand. And that is essentially the gap market that is not supported by commercial banks via a bond or any other type. We do also have other products in the housing market that is provided or subsidized partly or even fully by government. So, for instance, you have a product called First Home Finance. That is for those who are financing a home, they have not yet been able to, they're buying or building a home for the very first time. They don't qualify for a bond, or they qualify for a partial bond, and you can then apply for up to 300,000 for First Home Finance. And then we have a product which is called the social housing products. Those are usually, not usually, they are all rental stock. And that is leased by a private developer, which has a government entity as a partner. So, for instance, in the city of Joburg, you would be looking at properties co-owned by Joshco or the Johannesburg Social Housing Company. In Ekurhuleni, they have a similar housing company. In the city of Tshwane, they also have a similar housing company where they get into a partnership with a private developer. They co-own the development, and they rent out these housing units at varying rentals depending on your income. And then, of course, these are products really for the different income bands and moving away from those that we just build for as RTPs. Because essentially that's what the Department of Human Settlements was doing for the longest period of time. But there was a huge outcry from people who earn over the threshold but couldn't access opportunities for housing from commercial funds.
So the program then that Ikageng would fall under, is there a particular name for that? Because you said it's partially RDP but partially not. So, and it's important for me to also be correct in terms of how we're phrasing it.
Yes, so RDP is fully subsidized. Ikageng is partially subsidized. So partially subsidized in that you don't pay for the stand, you don't pay for, so the land you don't pay for the services. And yes, part of the program was that you would be furnished with plans and you would then have to then build yourself. The build would follow the normal process of anybody who has to build. So you take the plans, you get it approved through by the council. You then build within the period prescribed either by council, but our prescription was 5 years. And then and you get the stand. When you get the stand, you also get the title deed. So you own the stand. So it's partially subsidized because the department then pays for the services. We pay for the stands, and then we transfer the title deed to yourself, all of which you don't pay for.
Okay. How many projects were launched or were started similar to Ikageng in the province? Is it just that one, or were there a couple of others in other parts of the province?
So we have quite a few. So Ikageng is what we refer to as rapid land release. So it's the service stands, and they're all over in 4 of our regions, Ekurhuleni, City of Joburg in the west, and in the southern corridors. We mostly have them in our mega project developments. But for instance, in Ekurhuleni, in Davidton, we have a rapid land release program there, or Ikageng, that is not part of a mega project. It was just serviced stands, and that was just over 2,000 stands. I think to date we have issued about just over 5,000. But we are reviewing the policy simply because, for instance, some of the issues that your caller raised that we've not necessarily taken into consideration or accounted for when we design the program, and we're looking at whether the RDP cohort should be increased to be above 3,500, because the biggest outcry is that yes, people earn about 3,500, but you paying, for instance, a rental and you have other costs that you pay, and then you have very little income that is disposable for the purposes of building. So it's either we increase the cohort for an RDP house qualifying, so up to above 3,500, but that would need a national policy change, or we need to add to the basket of services that on Ikageng. Of course, that's a very expensive process because already we pay for the land, we pay for the registration of the title deed, we pay for the services.
The issue that is being raised by Nora there seems to also be stemming out of the municipality. So having to go to the municipality and follow these processes, building plans, submit them, zone, get the approval for the zoning, and the costs associated with that. What is the communication between you at provincial level and those at a municipal level in areas in which this rapid land release program is being carried out? Because if the municipality is not issuing those favorable rates to these landowners or the stand owners, it of course is going to be very difficult for them to even get to a point where they start building, given what we know to be their income status and just how much it costs to get these things done.
Yes, definitely. Look, municipalities have their own sort of governance structures and can't necessarily impose We have had discussions with municipalities, and unfortunately, the fact is that municipalities are in a very cash-strapped position. So any type of income that they seek to draw from consumers, they will do it. But we've had conversations with various municipalities. Some municipalities are reducing their required amounts. So if you and I were to build, we'd be probably charged the full amount. But from these who are Ikagileng beneficiaries, some municipalities have reduced what is the required amount. So for instance, in Lesedi, which is where Nora was speaking from, because that's the Heidelberg Ikagileng project, they have taken to council looking at a reduction for Ikagileng beneficiaries specifically. So the actual costs when you are registering or opening an account with Lesedi is 4,500 Rand, and they have taken an item to council for approval to reduce it for Ikagileng from 4,500 to 850. They are arguing that they can't waiver the cost at all because they have got administrative costs and other related costs that the municipality also has to bear when we do these. Bear in mind, Cathy, when we register houses or developments with municipalities as government also pays these amounts that are owed to municipalities. And you'll often hear many municipalities that claim that government owes them a lot in services or has got debt to municipality. Part of those would be these kind of amounts and costs. So even ourselves, when we're building in a municipality, when we initiate any type of development, we are also subjected to the municipality's billing regime. But different municipalities have looked at various ways of what can they reduce, up to what extent, without burdening themselves with carrying the administrative or legal or related costs as well. So I've spoken directly to Nora's situation in Lesedi, but it's different in different municipalities.
We're going to continue the conversation shortly with the Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements, Tasneem Motara. It's 10:30 now. Let's take your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Wanda Lambana, and a very good morning. Residents of the colony in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape have found 3 more bodies, putting the death toll at 12. This as the search continues for missing people, mostly learners that were travelling in a minibus taxi yesterday. The Special Investigating Unit says it has attained an order from the Special Tribunal to seize a portion of the farm Zandriversport outside Louis Trichardt in Limpopo, and a woman and a man have been arrested in Bloubergstrand in the Western Cape for allegedly sexually abusing their daughters. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 Rand 70 to the dollar, 23 Rand 86 to the pound, and 20 Rand 21 to the euro. Markets in Asia extended gains at the closing bell. The JSE is higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are green across the board this hour. Gold is trading at $3,345, platinum $1,258 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.02 a barrel.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
It all starts with advice from FNB Private. Because the perfect overseas trip starts with planning. Save and spend in multiple currencies with your FNB Global account and lock in exchange rates. Enjoy up to 40% off flights with eBucks Travel and order Forex on the FNB app delivered to you at no extra cost. Your adventure awaits. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. TCs, earn rules and limits apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on Citizens Corner this morning, focusing on the rollout of RDP houses, the different dispensations that government is currently implementing, and also then what the implication of that is for citizens who have access to some of these programs but are experiencing difficulties. And the one we're focusing on for this hour is under the Rapid Land Release program, where government effectively gives citizens free stands. They then have to, these are serviced stands, so they have water, electricity, but this is the citizens then have to build the actual houses for themselves. They have to get those approvals for themselves. So these are partially subsidized stands. Tasneem Mutara is the Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements, and she's the one joining us on the line for this conversation. Tasneem, you know, as you were explaining some of the challenges that you experience, particularly when it comes to municipalities and whether or not preferential rates can actually be offered to these individuals that have qualified for these stands. One thing's about the move, right, to try and have a more integrated approach to governance and integrated approach to different programs across the three spheres of government, local, provincial, and national. And I'm keen to know, what was the thinking at the onset of the program? How did you see it playing out versus the situation that we have unfolding today? Because one would imagine that before the program is even implemented, there are some kind of MOUs that are signed, whether it's between departments, whether it's between provinces and local government, that clearly outline what might be needed from each party in order to make a project of this nature a success.
Yes, Cathy. So certainly there would have been, and I think there would have been a willingness to do so, because having understood and appreciated the fact that we have a gap in what we provide as housing. So you still have those who are unable to access housing through ownership because they earn too much to receive a subsidized house or an RDP, or they earn too little to receive a bank loan or a bond. And I think this project or program was really seeking to address that gap that we have. And there was definitely willingness from municipalities to say, okay, definitely, we think we have to do this, and we'll definitely come on board. But the reality is that municipalities have continued to find themselves in financial difficulties. And when you've got to make these concessions, they sort of look at the rands and cents and their own income and their own needs in terms of expenditure and service delivery. And they say, well, look, yes, we did want to, but we aren't able to. Municipalities do waiver. So it's not something that doesn't happen in municipalities. Municipalities do waiver various costs linked to developments, linked to construction, etc., because they find ways of recuperating and recovering that funds further down the line from an investor, from a developer, from a home builder, etc. And so it's not something that is out of the ordinary when we requested municipalities to consider and look at, and then, of course, tell us to what extent they could waiver some of the costs. The Ikagileng program is about, I would say, 6 or 7 years old. And the reality is that post-COVID, municipalities, all of them, without fail in Gauteng, have been really struggling to get back to their pre-COVID collection figures in terms of rates and taxes and revenue income. So we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. So are municipalities, and we've got to come together to find a solution. Either we take back the project and the program and remove it from one of our offerings because it's just not workable, or we'll have to increase parts of what comes with the program and the project and pay those costs as provincial government on behalf of beneficiaries.
The challenge here about the problems that this project is facing are multiple, because you had given residents 5 years to be able to build these houses. It's now out of scope. Effectively, that 5-year period has lapsed. What are the implications of that?
So look, we looked at practices in the market. So in the property market, we looked at practices when people are developing. The normal practice is that you would buy a stand or a piece of land in a development. You are given maximum of about 3 years. Most of it, the average is 2 years to build. So we looked at all the aspects of, making it friendlier and cushioning the beneficiary, giving them 5 years, so you won't get 5 years in any development to build. The average, like I said, is 2 years. In some instances, you get up to 3 years. The 5 years where it has expired, I think there's very few that have. We're looking at how we extend that validity, but the rest are still valid. So we would have introduced the program about 6 to 7 years ago. Majority of those who have received their title deeds and their land, they are still valid. Those that are not, we are just looking at how we extend it, if they are still willing and interested to build. If they are not, then they cede the land back to the department. We then reallocate it to a beneficiary or an applicant who qualifies for the scheme.
Are these realistic targets that you have set, Tasneem, and expectations on these stand owners? Because one again goes back to the income bracket that these individuals sit within. So between 3,500 Rand and 7,000 Rand a month.
It's up to 22,000. It's up to 22,000.
Oh, is it up to 22,000? Okay.
Yeah, it's 3,500 up to 22,000. Look, Cathy, I think that there was an outcry from the public themselves, and they were saying that, look, we can actually build for ourselves, but meet us halfway. We aren't able to get a bond to buy a stand, and when you buy a stand, maybe you're buying a stand for 500,000, and then to build the house may cost another, let's say 500,000. You've got to get a bond for 1.2 million because you've got to include your transfer costs and the rest. And there was a huge outcry. By the way, there's still an outcry of people saying that we actually can and want to build for ourselves, but we don't have land. We can't access land. When we get land, we have, and you find it a lot in a lot of our townships, you find a lot of construction happening. The biggest difference with that is people are building those houses without approved plans, without the approval of the municipality. There's quite a well-known case of a situation where people have gone and built in Tshwane, out in the north of Tshwane, and the municipality is up in arms because people have built, some of them are double-story houses, some they're beautiful houses, but they've never been approved. Those houses have never been approved. By the municipality. Municipality can't build those homeowners. So we want a situation where beneficiaries are also law-abiding citizens. They also respect the municipal regulations, because for anybody to put up any type of development, whether it is a private home, whether it is a commercial property like a mall or whatever it is, you need the municipality to approve the plans. You need the municipality to bill you for services that they will be providing you with. And now, you have a lot of these constructions, and I think what possibly a lot of the beneficiaries failed to appreciate was that this is not your sort of build without the municipality process that has been taking place for a long period many, many years, especially in townships. So for something, even, so let's say, for example, we issue you with an RDP, you get an RDP. A lot of RDP houses have been improved. You find some RDP houses are now double stories, they've been extended, etc., etc. Majority, I can possibly put my head on the block and say those have been done. Those those alterations have been done to their RDP houses without the knowledge or the approval of the municipality, and that's not actually legal. That if you want to build from a single garage to a double garage, you need council to approve it. And I think all of us generally take that for granted. We make alterations to our houses, structural changes to our houses without going through a council process.
Okay.
And, the outcry was from people who didn't qualify for RDP houses, but were saying that, look, we can build for ourselves. We've got an income. We've worked out our cash flow and what needs to happen. I think 5 years is realistic, Cathy, if you look at what is the general practice. The practice in the market is 2 years, maximum of 3 years. You won't get 5 years.
Okay.
It's like, for instance, the first home finance. The first home finance, you get up to 300,000, very favorable payback conditions, because government's role is really to support and create an environment where people can be assisted. It's not to compete with the private sector. So we're not there to compete with the 4 big banks, as an example. But what the 4 big banks can't give you, government should be able to provide and cushion you.
All right.
But I think the biggest challenge was that while there was this outcry, people, even when they apply, and in fact, we have stopped allocating rapid land release now because we're relooking at the policy and saying that these are some of the gaps. We have to change a few things. If we aren't able to change it, we may have to withdraw the program until such a time that we're able to change those.
Yeah. Look, and the reality is that one doesn't necessarily question the need for such a program. It's evident, right? I think it speaks for itself. The question here is really about, yes, if you're on the upper band of that income bracket, right? If you're closer to the 22,000, you have a lot more options that you could be working around. But if you're just sitting around that 3,500 Rand mark, it's not about your determination or will or lack thereof that determines whether or not you're able to build that house in 5 years. It's literally because there's only so much that you can do with the income that you have, and there's only so far that it's going to be able to get you. I want to bring in the input of our listeners to this conversation, and it's particularly those that have specific questions.
Mandre from Haratanda Heidelberg, one of the Ikareling beneficiaries. My question to the MMC is, what happened to the building plans that they were promised to us as the Ikareling beneficiaries? And we want to know, why are the municipality charging us the money that they are charging us? Because now it seems like there are a lot of money, and now it seems like they are no longer giving us what we were promised. So that's my only question to the MMC. What happened to the building plans that were promised?
Hi, this is Cathy. Could you please ask your guest? When I check on the website, the status says in allocations, and I registered in 2008. My partner registered in 2021. It still says the same thing. It says in allocation. What does in allocation mean? If maybe they can explain that to us.
All right, MEC?
Yes, thanks. Okay, so I'll start with the last question. So in allocation means that we are in the process of allocating or identifying a project that we can allocate. So it means that the beneficiary does qualify. So they've registered, they've gone through pre-screening, and they do qualify. And they are at a point where we are linking them to a project. So they are closer to getting the house, if that's what is on the system. To the response to the first question, I think, so let me explain what the building plans, we provided prototype plans, and so for example, at a development you would get 6 prototypes. You choose the type of house that you want. So the difference would just be orientation. So your front door might be different. Your bedroom, the orientation of the house would be different. Also, depending on the stand size, those orientation would match the stand size. That is what we have provided and paid for as a department. Yours as a beneficiary is to select the prototype that you prefer and take it through council for approval. Now, what we're trying to do is reduce and remove the 6 prototypes, just reduce it to 3 or 4 100% approved plans by the municipality. The difficulty with that is that the beneficiary, you might get a stand with a pre-approved design plan, and you won't have choices to the prototypes. So the prototypes were our way of saying, here's an opportunity for you to choose, and then you take it, so you're closer to the type of house that you really want, as opposed to, because RDP houses are spec houses, they're all the same. There's no change even in orientation or design. But with the rapid land release, there was changes with the orientation and design. So we sort of going back, taking it back. We've done that in Davidton. So the plans are approved by the Ekurhuleni municipality. You just build. We're also working with companies like Cashbuild, for an example, who have put together a package of what it would cost. So let's say their package is 100,000, and they will. So the package includes the cement, the bricks, the everything, all the building materials, and you pay it over the period of 5 years for you to be able to build a house. So at least we've even gone that far, and we're finalizing that package with the likes of Cashbuild. We're looking at doing it with others as well, so that the product and the package is complete. Because I think the missing part is having just a complete package end to end, so that the beneficiary doesn't have to, and is not burdened with the other aspects that come with building a house.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We continue with this conversation shortly.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mzansi, Walala Wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. The Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements, Tasneem Mutara, still on the line. Let me go to Heidelberg. Nora, good morning to you. And of course, it was your call that triggered this conversation. You have a follow-up question for the MEC this morning.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Cathy. Cathy, there's a couple of untruths that the minister has said, or maybe they are just not aligned with the municipalities. The beneficiaries of phase 1, Ikacheleng, earn between 3,500 and 7,000. The beneficiaries of phase 2, which has not started yet, are the ones who earn between 7,000 and 22,000. We fall under phase 1. We're earning between 3,500 and 7,000. For 2 years, Cathy, we've been waiting for the building plans. They still haven't materialized. It's been 2 years. We have never received the building plans. Some of us did manage to make them at 4,000 rand per person. And the municipality is asking Cathy from us to pay at least almost 40,000 rand. To open services for water, they want 5,000. To open electricity, they want 15,000. Now, after we opened that account for 1,000, it's not 850, it's not 850 as the minister said. It's 1,200 rand to open an account. Once you open that account, we are receiving bills of 850 rand a month. But nobody is staying there. The stands have been vandalized. Transformers have been, the cables and everything is just been vandalized. While we are sitting waiting for them to do something. The municipality says they're waiting for province. The province is not answering them. We were there yesterday. We went there to protest. We gave them, last month, a memorandum. I don't know if the MEC received it. So we went there again yesterday after a month of waiting for answers. They want 40,000 rand from someone who earns 3,500 rand.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's been 2 years waiting for building plans. Nothing is happening.
Nora, let me thank you for that contribution, and we'll give Ms. Motara an opportunity to respond shortly.
I just wanted to make it quickly, Cathy. She said that the services are free. They were giving us free services. It's not free in our municipality. It's 40,000 rand for us.
Yes.
We just want her to address all of that.
All right.
Because what she's saying there is not.
All right, Nora, thanks for that. Itumeleng, you're in Ratanda. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good, go for it, Itumeleng.
Yes, ma'am. Yesterday we had a call with the MEC, Mr. Mutsipa. We demanded the service of the land that they were promised to us. And then I heard she said she called Miss Sinclair or whatever it is. And Miss Sinclair said that and the service is not a part of service 10 subsidy contract and concluded project contract. How did they release the land? The question is, how did they release the land to the people knowing that the service connections are not concluded to the project contract? That is a big question we're asking to Mr. Mutsipa. And MEC send us again to housing to ask those questions. So we don't know who's playing the games here. We want answers. We want to stay occupied to our land. So the question is how they release the land, knowing that this was not a part of the project contract.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that question, Itumeleng. Tasneem?
Thanks so much. So, okay, the feedback that I have from the MC in the city is that to open the account currently is 4,500, and they've taken an item to council to reduce it to 850. So that's the normal 4,000. That's just, there are different fees. So there's a connection of electricity because the municipality has to pay ESCOM, and I don't know the process. Even when we to our developments, when we want to put in, got to pay ESCOM to put in the electricity infrastructure. Secondly, so when that is finalized, and as I said when I explained, is that different municipalities charge different fees for various services. So they have a fee for electricity connection, opening of the account, for water connection, etc. And these are revenue streams for the municipality. I think, the point that Nora raises, whether phase 1 or phase 2 being 3,500 up to 7,000 or 3,500 up to 22,000, is neither here nor there because the product is still the same. So it's still land which is serviced. It has electricity, it has water, it has sewer. You don't qualify for an RDP because you earn more than the quantum or the threshold, and then the municipality charges. What our engagement with all the municipalities has been is of the best is to waiver all of these costs, and the municipality will recover them down the line when the house is built and they start to bill you for water use or electricity use and services like refuse removal, etc. And as I said, when this program was conceptualized, that was the thinking that municipalities will relax and waiver all the costs that are attached to it. But municipalities have said, we can't waiver it 100%, we can reduce it, yes, but we still have to get a charge. And I think that what we have to finalize the recipe is what would be a fair and decent charge. Cathy, I can tell you something. There's a lot of beneficiaries who would they apply for these. We take them through the process. We explain what they will be required to do. We explain that because it's easier on paper than it is when you practically have to do. A lot of people who apply. And we have a lot of people that are unable to kick off or start with the building because of the realities. We might think that somebody who is earning 3,500 will be more in a more difficult position as somebody who's earning 22,000. But the reality is that even those earning 22,000, they are, not to sound insensitive, but they are one salary away from having to collect the grant. If anything happens in their economic situation, and heaven forbid they lose their jobs and they no longer earn the 22,000, they don't have savings, and that is just the situation of so many South Africans. They don't have savings, they don't have access to other monies that can carry them for a certain amount of period, and we actually, many of us, probably myself included, live within what we earn, so we don't have extra disposable income. And anybody who earning 10,000, whatever, you are paying for wherever you are staying. So rental, probably nominal rental, because many people do stay in small rentals. They pay their own school fees or for their kids' school fees. Maybe they pay nominal amounts, but there's other costs like traveling to work that they bear and that sort of thing. So, the notion of disposable income is not, it's not all of us that earn money that have access to disposable income. But for you to be able to build, even if you were staying in your own home and you had access to bond, you've got to service your current debt or your current living costs as well as build from a disposable income, which is quite difficult to do in practical terms.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there for this morning with the Human Settlements MEC in Gauteng, Tasneem Motara. It does sound like there are still a lot of question marks around what needs to be done to make a project like this more successful than perhaps where it's sitting today, leaving the thousands of beneficiaries frustrated with their inability to actually move forward. Let's take the latest news update.
Thank you, Cathy. Top stories at 11. 3 more bodies found in the colony in Mthatha, and a woman and a man arrested for sexually abusing their daughter. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Residents of the colony in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape have found 3 more bodies, putting the death toll at 12. This as the search continues for missing people, mostly learners that were travelling in the minibus taxi yesterday. Floods that follows the heavy rain washed away the vehicle. Premier Oscar Mabuyane is leading a delegation of senior provincial government officials to the affected areas. Our reporter Fundiswa Mhlekude is at the scene.
I can confirm that 3 bodies have been found, 2 boys and a girl girl, and they are all in their school uniform. So the community members tell us that around 3 this morning, they woke up and started searching for the missing people, and they stumbled upon these 3 bodies. The MEC of local government as well as the mayor of OR Tambo district municipality are on their way here. We also see a roving helicopter. Maybe it is part of the operation, the search and rescue operation.
Meanwhile, residents of the Skiti informal settlement in Butterworth say they have no option but to erect their shacks in the low-lying areas from which they have been evacuated. They say this is because the area is close to economic activities in the town. The area was flooded and the residents' homes were destroyed. Nearly 600 people have been displaced. Nobathembu Kala is one of the affected residents.
We are going to rebuild our shacks in the same place we were evacuated because it is the only place we feel safe. Our children also won't feel safe anywhere else but here. We also have people that go to work as early as 6 a.m. and now have to use a different route, which is not safe. We used to be robbed when the bridge was here. It will be worse now.
The Special Investigating Unit says it has attained an order from the Special Tribunal to seize a portion of the farm Zen Riversport outside Louis Trichardt in Limpopo. Portion 15 of the farm was allegedly bought with funds obtained fraudulently from the National Lotteries Commission. The SIU found that 3 non-profit organizations fraudulently received over 66 million rand from the Commission. SIU spokesperson Kaiser Khanyago says the funds intended for the construction of old age homes were diverted to private entities and individuals.
The SIU's probe into the LLC-funded project uncovered a sophisticated scheme involving hijacking of legitimate non-profit organization, falsified grant application, and the diversion of funds to private entities and individuals. The investigation focused on 3 NPOs, Matieni Community Center, Letabong Old Age Home, and War Against Rape and Abuse, War RNA, which together received more than 66 million under false pretenses. The SIU investigation revealed that Matieni Community Center, a defunct NPO, was fraudulently revived to apply for NLC funding. The original members were unaware of the application, and the individuals listed in the NLC application were not legitimate members.
A woman and a man have been arrested in Blobergstrand in the Western Cape for allegedly sexually abusing their daughters. Police spokesperson Amanda van Wyk says the daughters are aged 3 and 8. She says the suspects face charges including rape and sexual grooming. Several electronic devices were also seized during the arrest. Van Wyk says the 2 children have been placed in a place of safety. She says the suspects will appear in court soon.
The victims were rescued during the operation and have since been placed in a place of safety. The operation was carried out by a multidisciplinary team comprising members of our National and Western Cape Serial and Electronic Crime Investigations units and officials from the Department of Social Development, supported by the FBI and Homeland Security investigations. The suspects were located at a residence identified through joint investigative efforts. The investigations remain ongoing.
Police in Los Angeles say they have carried out mass arrests following the introduction of a partial curfew in downtown districts. Protests against President Donald Trump's immigration policies are continuing, as is the political row over the deployment of the U.S. Marines and the California National Guard to the city. California Governor Gavin Newsom says the deployment has worsened the situation.
California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly, but this, again, was different. What then ensued was a use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights.
Recapping the top story, residents of the colony in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape have found 3 more bodies, putting the death toll at 12. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News Headlines at 11:30.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
This week on BBC Primetime, watching TV could make you a winner. It's the BBC Primetime Watch and Win competition. Just tune into your BBC Primetime shows, answer a few simple questions on S3's TikTok account, and you could walk away with awesome prizes. From thrilling dramas to jaw-dropping reality shows, the more you watch, the more chances you have to win. Watch, answer, win. Only on BBC Primetime. Airs weeknights 9 to 11 p.m. on S3. Your couch just became the best seat in the game. In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Good morning. My name is Lindiwe. I'm from Ratanda. I just want to ask the minister, how do they expect a person who earns 4,000 to build a house within a period of 5 years, whereas we have so much expenses within this economy?
Hi, Cathy, and good morning to your guest. Cathy, your guest can explain all she wants. The bottom line is building material is so expensive. For a person who's getting 20,000 rand, it's not going to be easy, Cathy, to build, to gather the bricks and the cement and everything. What is the rush? If you have given the person the stand, give the person enough time. What is the rush? Why do you rush the people to build? You can't be speaking from your high horse and think the people on the ground will be able to do that.
Regarding this Ikaraling projects, the problem is these municipalities can't even maintain or render a good service. It is like you're going to overburden these municipalities where they already falter and fail to deliver the basic needs. Now you're going to open the doors for more corruption with the incompetent municipalities and municipal managers. At the end of the day, this is just going to add to the decay, which will lead into more disasters.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Yeah, thanks for those voice notes that you've sent through responding to the conversation we had in the last hour. I think what is clear is the fact that, there seems to be a stagnation of sort where this project is concerned, simply because, as you heard from the MEC, there's no clear way forward for what these beneficiaries can do when they are in municipalities that are also giving reasons and coming up with reasons for why they can't offer discounted services to them. And one just asks, then what must happen? What must happen now? Surely there has to be some kind of direction, right? Because of the number of beneficiaries that are in that position. And absolutely there's a need for a project of this nature, because not everybody wants to sit there and wait for an RDP house from government, especially where they feel they can be able to build housing for themselves. But it does very much sound like there has to be a bit of going back to the drawing board to look at what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what are the appropriate interventions for the aspects of the project that have not worked. Our final conversation this morning takes a look at the alcohol industry, in particular the illicit alcohol market, which has grown to 25 billion rand in 2024. The sale of illegal alcohol not only impacts public health, but also consumer safety. And of course, there's the question of the money that is lost to the fiscus. This is from uncollected revenue. Right now, that figure is projected to be sitting in the region of 16.5 billion rand. In a new study on illicit alcohol in South Africa, a consumer survey has revealed that 50% of participants knew somebody that had been harmed by illicit alcohol, and 29% knew somebody that had lost their lives as a result of this. Our next guest teamed up with Euromonitor International to help us understand the severity of the problem. Dr. Shamal Ramesa is Head of Research at Drinks Federation of South Africa. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Shamal.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to all our listeners. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
If we are to look at the industry of illicit alcohol and how it has been growing in this country, many people, of course, like to point to COVID-19 as having been a turning point. When we look at tobacco, for instance, that really became a single policy move that propelled the illegal tobacco market in this country to a point where it's very difficult now to reverse what has happened. Would you say it is the same with alcohol? Has there been a particular moment that has led us to where we are today?
Thanks, Cathy. I believe that's incredibly correct, in that COVID-19 showed the viability of this illicit market in South Africa, where consumers were accessing alcohol through illegitimate channels or manufacturing their own, and so grew the market in terms of counterfeiting and smuggling and so on. And I also believe firmly that is where the turning point occurred, purely because it showed there is a market for this type of industry in South Africa.
When we talk about illicit alcohol, break down for us what falls under that. Is it just alcohol that is sold illegally? And again, given the structure of our alcohol market, South Africans have always had different ways of consuming alcohol in communities. So what counts as illegal?
Thanks, Cathy. So when we talk about illicit alcohol, we largely refer to four main categories. Now, the first one is what we refer to as counterfeit or illicit brands. And here's where you get what we call fraudulent imitations of legitimate branded products. So, in cases here, you're getting alcohol that is being, falsified or tampered with, adulterated, maybe diluted. And in worst case scenarios, they've been diluted with chemical compounds that are deleterious to human health. Then, of course, you get smuggling and contraband. And this is where you get alcohol that is illegally imported or smuggled into an area and sold, and therefore they evade all tariffs such as excise tax and customs. And this also includes something that we call round tripping, where legitimate alcohol is sent cross-border and brought back in, and thereby escaping the tax implications. The third type is actually tax leakage. And here's where you get legally produced alcohol beverages, and the required excise tax was not paid in the jurisdiction of the product. So what this kind of means is that the product itself has been misclassified. Example, an ale versus a fruit or sugar fermented product. And because it is not classified correctly, then the incorrect excise taxes or duties are paid on it. And the last one, of course, is what we call artisanal or the home brew. And this is where you get, your traditional alcoholic beverages, which are manufactured but sold. And then, of course, these include stuff like your pineapple beers and your mampoos and stuff like that that are made illegally and in unregulated conditions.
Now, that's a very difficult thing that you've just talked about there. And I'll start off with artisanal and we can work our way back through the others that you've mentioned. When it comes to the home brews, that is very much sort of in line with cultures that have been created within different communities. People brew alcohol for all sorts of reasons, all sorts of occasions, sometimes even to perform rituals, whatever the case might be. Now, in terms of measuring that and categorizing that as illicit, I'm just struggling with that idea, because this has been, in some ways, many would argue, it has been their way of life.
Thanks, Cathy, and absolutely. We have a rich cultural heritage in South Africa, which requires us to manufacture these type of brews at home, umqombothi and the like, and that's absolutely fine. There's no issues with it. Where it does become an issue is when they make these brews and sell it for public consumption, because we can fully agree that when umqombothi is made at a cultural ceremony, it's for partaking of the guests during that ritual and in those cultural practices. It's not sold to the guests. But however, some individuals then start to make these home brews and start selling it to the public, and there's no taxes and stuff that's been placed on that there. The problem that we're also starting to find is that in order to try and make these home brews stronger, so to strengthen them, these unqualified chemists are then adulterating these home brews with toxic chemicals. And we've heard all horror stories, especially out in the rural areas where chemicals are mixed into these home brews to strengthen the alcohol. And these chemicals include stuff like battery acid, ethanol, methanol, and anything that they can include to make their brew or concoction stronger. And that's really where the problem comes in. We have absolutely no challenge with home brews that are made for the cultural reasons and for cultural practices.
When we look at the category that falls under counterfeit or illegal brands, what do we know about what the origins of some of these products may be, where they're coming from, who's making all of this stuff?
And that's the golden question, Cathy. So they are coming from very sophisticated manufacturing lines, not only locally but globally as well. Because the Euromonitor study clearly showed that this problem of counterfeiting is not unique to South Africa. It's a problem that plagues the entire world, purely because the operations have become so sophisticated and they realize that there are such huge margins in counterfeit brands. We've done raids through our industry stakeholders in South Africa where we managed to confiscate these counterfeit products and actually send them to the labs for testing to see what type of chemicals are being used in the manufacture of these products. And the findings were quite horrific. One of the biggest findings from the study was many of these products contain methanol. Now, methanol is extremely toxic for human consumption, and it causes various deleterious effects on the physiology of the human body. And that's why the DFSA is choosing to embark on this huge public awareness campaign against illicit alcohol, but particularly counterfeit alcohol, purely because of the health concerns that are associated with it. Cathy, you would have remembered that even in December last year, our own South African artist and his fiancée were on holiday in Vietnam, and they consumed alcohol laced with methanol, and they both unfortunately demised. A month before that, they were the 4 young students who were on vacation in Laos who consumed alcohol that was also laced with methanol also died as a result. And we are finding in our confiscated products as well that there are methanol constituents, amongst others, like ethanol and stuff that are also not fit for human consumption.
Sure. There's so much for us to sort of try and unpack there, because if we are unable to say where we believe this alcohol might be coming from, then it becomes even more difficult to get it out of circulation. Do we at least even know if it's been manufactured in the country or if it's making its way through the borders?
It's both, Cathy. Unfortunately, it's both. You've got some small, backyard operations in South Africa. You've got some bigger, sophisticated operations in South Africa. And then you've got global operations that are manufacturing counterfeit brands and are bringing it in through our borders. The problem, as you said, is horrific, but it does require what we like to call a whole society approach towards eliminating this threat that we're finding in South Africa. And that requires the consumers themselves, the public, who know that a particular outlet is selling counterfeit products, to report them to the local authorities. And there are, the Consumer Goods Council, amongst others, that have these hotlines by which these outlets can be reported. But at the same time, it's no secret that we are under-resourced when it comes to law enforcement. And in fact, if we could have eyes and ears on the ground that better informs our existing law enforcement structures, that will go a long way, towards helping eradicate the problem. We do know that many of our borders are porous, and there's quite a lot of work that's being done at the moment, to ensure that stricter measures are being taken to try and limit the entry of these products into our country itself. But then again, it also requires, stronger inputs from our government departments, to support the industry, who also feels that they have a huge role to play in terms of eliminating illicit alcohol in the South African market. So it's a whole of society approach that's required here. It can't just be one department or one group of people that's aiming to tackle this monster of a problem. It requires everyone to chip in and really start taking down this beast.
When it comes to how the smuggling often takes place and all of these different networks that, again, are involved with it, do you find that there's an intentionality around where certain of these brands land? So are they targeted, and is it organized to a point where these groups have come to understand the market segmentation? So you are more likely to find, let's say, counterfeit products in a particular part of one town than perhaps in another.
Thanks, Cathy. And the study that we've recently concluded shows that, unfortunately, the syndicates have become so sophisticated that we are finding illicit product in both the formal and the informal markets. We would have been conditioned to think that this is largely a problem that you would find in the informal sector. But because of the sophistication now, we are starting to pick up illicit product in even formal sectors as well.
What are the solutions? How do we deal with this problem?
So the solutions, like I said, it's going to take a whole of society approach. And it really does require, efforts from all of the different stakeholders that are involved, be it at a SARS level, law enforcement, which is SAP, our liquor boards. The industry are the first to put their hands up and say, we want to be involved in trying to assist in terms of identifying, counterfeit product, where they're coming from, provide intelligence, from our sources as well. But then, of course, we rely and would rely a lot on the South African public themselves in order for them to report when they know that a product or an outlet is selling counterfeit product. But at the same time, the DFSA is deeply committed to driving a huge public awareness campaign. Firstly, on the dangers of consuming counterfeit product, but also, how to identify, whether a product is counterfeit or not. And all of these type of, activities are happening in the background, and we are trying to scale it up. And that is what the purpose of this research is going to drive, and that is the scaling up of public awareness towards the problem, which is illicit alcohol in South Africa.
And to the extent that part of what you're also dealing with here is trying to make sure that people don't support this market. And yet at the same time, there could be perceptions that this is also a market that is quite monopolized. You've got very big players in the industry, and that this is a way of keeping your smaller players out. And so therefore, the industry will never change.
So, not really understanding the question here, but yes, we do know that, there are manufacturers that are trying to produce legitimate alcohol, which could possibly be safe, but unfortunately, they are not going through the correct channels in terms of manufacturing, and therefore, the product is actually illicit in its own sense as well. In terms of the consumer surveys that were done in South Africa, it's no big secret. Consumers are fully aware that they are even purchasing counterfeit illicit alcohol, but are doing it in any way. And much of the reasons for this are the drivers behind illicit alcohol in South Africa, and much of it has been shown to be related to affordability, because many of the consumers would still like to consume branded products, but because of the high excise taxes forced on it on these products by government and so on, the affordability then becomes decreased by the general consumer. So they then tend to opt to buy illicit product. All right. Then, of course, as we mentioned, accessibility. We're starting to see the sophistication of these operations now, so that these illicit products are found in every market, so formal and informal as well. And the scale of the operation is another factor, because they've realized that they are such a huge market for this in South Africa. They've scaled up their productions and their value chains in terms of bringing these products into South Africa itself.
Right.
And that is why we are finding, such a huge growth in the illicit alcohol space.
Absolutely. A very concerning story and development there. Dr. Shamal, let me thank you for your time, Head of Research at Drinks Federation of South Africa. It's 11:30. Here's a look at your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines, residents of the colony in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape have found 3 more bodies, putting the death toll at 12. This as the search continues for missing people, mostly learners that were traveling in a minibus taxi yesterday. The case of the 39-year-old suspect arrested in connection with the brutal murder of Liko Nafose has been postponed to the 18th of this month in the Roodepoort Magistrate Court in Johannesburg. And police in the Austrian city of Graz say they found a farewell letter and a non-functioning pipe bomb in the house of the man who shot dead 10 people in a school on Tuesday. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivals. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, our final conversation of the day. It is a Wednesday, so it's time for our G20 series with Lerato Tsebe as we look at how South Africa is using the space then at the helm of the G20 presidency. Lerato, good morning to you.
Good morning to your listeners.
I think, Lerato, just say good morning again. I want to make sure we actually have a solid line to you. Not sure why it was breaking.
Good morning.
There
Can
we
you
go.
hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
loud and clear now. Loud and clear now. Hope you're keeping warm in these very cold times.
I am trying. It's quite a cold front we've been confronted by, I must say, though.
The cities of Tshwane and Johannesburg Urban 20 or U20 Sherpa meeting and the African Mayors Assembly meeting taking place. What has been on the agenda?
So, Cathy, it's starting tomorrow, I believe. Dr. Moya, the mayor of Tshwane, and Mr. Dada Moreira, City of Johannesburg's mayor, are going to be hosting over 90 mayors, many of them from within the African continent. Now, the U20 is essentially the Urban 20, rather. It's a platform, an engagement group, rather, within the G20 that's supposed to discuss issues that concern the development and the infrastructure and climate change and financing and urban planning of cities across the continent and also across G20 member states. This year, for the U20 circle, they've got 4 key priorities that they're going to be discussing over the next 2 days, and that's going to be economic opportunities and financing, climate action and urban resilience, social inclusion and equity, digital transformation and information and innovation, rather. They're essentially wanting to enrich the G20 agenda and propose joint solutions, especially in relation to climate action and sustainable economic development that is confronting everyone to the broader G20 agenda, and to ensure that essentially the discussions and deliberations that they're having over the next 2 days are going to be included, obviously, in the broader November text, because these are essentially the heart centers, essentially, of all capitals globally in terms of generating economic productivity and revenue and development and growth. So that's what they're going to be deliberating and discussing over the next 2 days. I have seen Dr. Moya, who's the mayor of the city of Tshwane, rather. She's been very busy this past week, really sort of scrubbing down the city, getting it all ready and looking shiny and well prepared to be hosting her counterparts. So I am anticipating a really rather successful meeting for her. I haven't seen much going on in COJ. I think there's a bit of a long list of itinerary as to what needs to be fixed first there. But I'm also hoping that they'll do quite well for themselves as well.
Lerato, I'm having to suppress my response to what you've just said. Getting the city looking shiny again. All we can say is good luck with that. And how many days do they have to get it spick and spank ready?
Today, essentially. They have today.
Anyway, lest we digress, let me move on. This weekend, of course, is also the G7 meeting that is taking place in Canada. We're expecting that President Ramaphosa will meet with President Trump at that meeting. Firstly, just tell us about what's going to be on the agenda of the G7.
Sure. Cathy, Canada is now hosting the G7 meeting for the seventh time. It's going to be taking place in Kanaskis, Canada. This is Prime Minister Carney's first big international showcasing since becoming Prime Minister of Canada almost a month ago now, I think. The themes that they have selected for the G7 meeting are protecting our communities and the world, which is inclusive of strengthening peace and security, and countering foreign interference in transactional crime. They want to be building energy security and accelerating digital transitions, and securing the partnerships of the future, which means they want to lean in more on financing and building infrastructure. And they also want to lean in a bit as well, more so onto climate change. Now, Cathy, this is a very interesting G7 meeting, rather. And I'll tell you why. It is a G7 meeting of many firsts. There's about about 4 or 5 of those heads of state that are literally just coming into office within the past few weeks. This includes Japan with Prime Minister Ishiba, South Korea, President Jae Myung just came in, Minister Carney as well, German President Friedrich Merz. So a lot of first-time rounders are going to be engaging with one another. Our personal head of state, President Ramaphosa, being the only African head of state, having been invited to the G7 meeting, he's scheduled to meet President Trump. What they're going to be discussing, since they just last saw each other 3 weeks ago, I'm not too sure. Perhaps it's going to be the trade deal that Minister Park Stow at the Department of Trade and Industry has put on the table for our American counterparts. He's also scheduled to meet with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, as well as the Prime Minister of Canada. It is a big feather in the cap of the South African government to be invited to what is really the premier sort of club diplomacy group globally. These are the 7 largest economies in the world. So it's a big compliment to us. It's also interesting, Cathy, that we've got not 1, but 3 BRICS member states that have been invited to this meeting. That is Brazil, which is currently hosting the BRICS summit for the year. South Africa also are hosting the G20, and India. South Africa and obviously Brazil are members of the Troika for the G20 meeting. I must say, Cathy, I was surprised to see that the Prime Minister of India has been invited to this meeting. There have been some very tense diplomatic relations between Ottawa and New Delhi, especially with the Sikh community in Canada being persecuted and by the Hindu nationalist government of Prime Minister Modi, and the Canadian government, since the previous Prime Minister, they've been having very serious challenges with one another. So I was at the 11th hour very surprised to see him scoring an invite. But in his reasoning and in his own messaging to the public, the Prime Minister says that he feels that he sort of wants to resolve issues in a manner that is respectful and in abidance with the rule of law, and focusing on both countries' security concerns. So we will see how that very tense meeting is going to go. But I wish them luck as well.
Yeah, and you know, the thing with these meetings, Lerato, and I take the point that you're making around being able to have a seat at the table, but for many South Africans, the question is always, well, how are these conversations serving us? So how does having that seat benefit us at the end of the day?
Well, for me, Cathy, I think one thing that happened, and to answer this, about 2 weeks ago, the G7 finance ministers and central bank governors met in Canada. And in their communique, they actually do explicitly make reference to the G20 and to us hosting the G20, and talking about how they want to see debt treatments being more fairer, more transparent, and trying to ensure more sound economic governance and financial sustainability for all G20 member states, and also just essentially wanting to re-emphasize a lot of other recommendations they've made at other G20 meetings. Now, why this is important, Cathy, for us is, as you know, debt alleviation or debt restructuring mechanisms has been a very consistent theme for us as a country, And I think for it to be mentioned even at the G7 finance ministers meeting means that they are paying much stronger attention to it. Why we should care as a country is it also could mean that we could see serious resolve at the broader multilateral development banks, such as the IMF, or institutions rather, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, which could mean that we could borrow more for much less. Now, the timing of this is obviously a bit ironic given the fact that yesterday the South African government just signed off on another World Bank loan. I believe there's two of them, and they're now saying that it's to assist us in restructuring the economic, I believe, transformation and or sort of the economic roadmap that the country is embarked on. But we should be caring. We should care, Cathy, because we are not only gaining access to more financing, but we could be getting access to more financing at much better terms and conditions.
The detail is all in the fine print, right? It's all in the fine print. Lerato, next week is the T20 midterm conference. What are we anticipating for that?
Yeah, next week is one of the last conferences for this engagement group, the T20s, the Think Tank 20. They're going to be meeting in Pretoria for the next 2 days, next week, starting on the 19th of June. They will be reflecting on the progress that they've made so far, engage with other task force members and sort of align their upcoming deliverables within G20 timelines. Now, why this is important is that they've had 5 thematic task forces within this particular engagement group, and they've been really driving, Cathy, the agenda of restructuring of international financial institutions. And they've sort of been, they're the brains trust essentially in terms of getting down to paper the T's and C's about how we want to foresee and realize better, adequate and more adequate accessibility to financing at the MDB levels. And also, these are the guys that are really going to be assisting their respective heads of state in getting down that final communique in November that they all have to sign off on. So it's a very important meeting as well next week.
Wonderful. Lerato Tsebe, thank you as always for your time and for bringing us the G20 series.
Thank you, Cathy, for having me.
That's Lerato Tsebe there. You can expect more from her next week as we continue with that particular series. Really always so enlightening to hear her analysis and reporting on part of what is unfolding. Well, on that note, it edges us closer to the end of the talking point for today. The show will be back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Coming up next is the book reading. Of course, stay tuned to SAFM for all of the latest news and current affairs throughout the day because we do keep it moving for you and we do have conversations that move you throughout the day. On that note, that's where we'll wrap it up. It's my lot alongside Kanya and Lebo, and we'll, of course, be back with you tomorrow. Everybody else that has worked on things on the technical end, a big thank you for your contribution.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
What percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
My brother, you cannot have a percentage because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we say a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velinkosi Tlabisa.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
SFM's award-winning drama department presents another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motswenyane. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Chapter 1. My family background. I am descended from the Mutswenyane family, which originates from the Bakwena Mudimusana tribe, and whose ancestral home is Mulukwani, situated about 30 kilometers west of the town of Rustenburg. The Bakwena Mudimusana tribe has 4 branches: Bamanamela, Bamatau, Bamaka, Bamatlaku, in accordance with the seniority of the 4 Mudimusana sons, and upon whom the 4 branches are formed. The Mutswanyanis belong to the Bamatau branch and are closely related to the royalty in this group. Around the 1820s, the Bakwena Mudimusani were driven from their ancestral home at Mulukwani Bamzilegazi. My family went with those that migrated to the south and initially took refuge in a cave called Lepalo near Potchefstroom. They eventually moved to the Orange Free State, where they worked for Afrikaner farmers. While the Mutswenyane family had always lived as a close-knit family, by the time they moved from the Free State back to the Old Transvaal just prior to the Anglo-Boer War in 1899, many had dispersed. Some went west, and some of my father's brothers who had experienced farming with the Afrikaners in the Free State bought their own farms in the Lichtenburg and Potchefstroom areas. This was around 1903, at a time when some Africans thought that we were a very stupid family to buy God's land. People believed that the land belonged to God and thus to everybody. Traditionally, in Africa, land was regarded as a gift of God to the people and not to individuals. Individual ownership was regarded as selfish. They could not understand why anyone would want to have a farm of his or her own. According to them, even the whites who claimed the land as theirs were wrong. This is why in some rural areas where we have the tribal system, communal ownership of property is dominant. I'm among those who support the ideas of freehold individual ownership of land. My family witnessed freehold ownership among Afrikaners. Having been driven from their ancestral home in Mulukwani by Mziligazi, they moved to the Free State, very much like refugees. They never felt at home in the Free State and also knew that the land they worked on was not theirs. They always intended to go back home to Mulukwani, where their ancestors were. Even when they had moved deep into the Free State around the 1860s and were situated near Kroonstad, the chief who had remained behind would visit them and bring them tidings from home. So they delayed buying their own land. It was in fact on their way back to Mulukwani that they decided to buy themselves land, and that is how my family bought their farms. We were amongst the earliest blacks to buy land in the Transvaal. Some Mutswenyane families bought farms at Bale and Wildebeespan, as well as at Gelekspan, Brooksby, and Kaalpan in the Western Transvaal. My father decided not to buy land at that stage and went to work at Egenarsfontein, the farm where we were all born. My father, Pule Solomon Mutswenyane, was born in 1872 at Tlosikwe, a little hill near Vredendorp in the Orange Free State. He grew up in a place where there were no schools for black people. However, the influence of the Christian church was quite pervasive at that time, and I understand that they used to pray together with the Afrikaners, even though the Afrikaners of that day did not regard black people as equals in everyday life. I remember an interesting story that my father used to tell us. Since Tlosikwe was not too far from Basotho land, and the people from there spoke English, The people of Klosikwe, who yearned to speak English like those from nearby Basotho land, collected money among themselves and organized for Ezekiel Mapetla, who spoke fluent English, to come and teach them to speak that language. The people would gather at the concert hall and ask him to speak. Can you speak English, please? He would start speaking English to the crowd, and no matter what he said, people were highly impressed and remarked, "Oh, Sensakadinko." He speaks English like a native English speaker. My father told us that it was because of Ezekiel Mapetla's coming to Klosikwe that he was able to do what he called step by one. That would be our present grade 1 equivalent, because with the English that he learned, he was just able to write his name. In spite of the fact that his English was not very good, my father could, however, read the Sesotho Bible and hymnal quite well. My father was kind and deeply religious. He was a very good vocalist and sang most of the hymns in the Sesotho Methodist hymn book very well. He was a hard worker with a strong work ethic. He used to get up very early in the morning, and because he did not have a watch, he relied on nature, the stars and the sun, to tell the time. He would look for the morning star, and if it was out, then it was time to get up. He would also listen to the cock crow. When it crowed for the second time, it was an indication that it was time to get up and start working. As we worked during the day, he would look at the position of the shade to tell what time of the day it was. If we were facing south and the shade fell between the legs, he would say, "It is 12 o'clock. Stop the cattle and let's go and eat." Later in the day, he would be guided by the setting of the sun and would call off his duties depending on where the sun was positioned. That is the type of man my father was. He imparted a lot of his beliefs and work ethics to his family, especially his children. We used to be woken up very early to fetch the cattle and to inspan them. Before sunrise, my father's cattle would be already inspanned and pulling. My father married his first wife, Mama Akwa, in 1902. Mama Akwa was my father's maternal uncle's daughter. Marrying one's cousin was in accordance with our Tswana custom, and it was, in my father's case, influenced by the preference of his mother, Mediamiri. She wanted him to marry a member of her people, the Katanis from Phuket. Due to the respect that children had for their parents in those times, my father respected his mother's wish and had to drive his Lobola cattle on foot for more than 200 kilometers, all the way from Egnarsfontein to Channing, near where Sun City is today. My father and Mama Akwa lived together from 1902 until 1918, when she died during the great influenza outbreak of that year. Out of this marriage, 2 sons and 3 daughters were born. My mother. In 1923, my father married his second wife, my mother, Dikeledi Christina, a daughter of the Ratsefola family. Unlike Mama Akwa, my mother did not come from familial relations. By the time of their marriage, my paternal grandmother had long passed away, and my father had the freedom to choose his new wife without any parental influence. My maternal grandfather, Tlanudi Ratsefola, was a rich man and had lots of cattle, 5 wives and 27 children. The Afrikaners who could not correctly pronounce his name used to call him Ourek January. My mother, who was born in 1892, married into the Motswanyane family in 1923, already a grown woman. One of the reasons that made it difficult for her to marry earlier was that she had a younger sister, Kitsia, who was born blind in 1894 and whom my mother took responsibility for. She agreed to marry into the Motswenyane family on condition that she would bring her blind younger sister with her, as she wanted to continue looking after her. This second marriage was blessed with 2 sons and 1 daughter. Altogether, there were 8 children in our family, 4 sons and 4 daughters. I was the youngest son and the 7th in the family. My mother also never really attended school and could hardly write, but like my father, she was able to read the Bible and also sang very well from the hymn book. She was industrious, hardworking, and loved cleanliness. All the children were expected to work hard, and the idea that male children did not do certain chores and left them for the girls to do was not acceptable to her. She wanted us to do exactly what the girls did, cook and stamp sorghum mabele for making porridge. We used to participate in all these activities under her care. She was also highly principled and would oppose things that she did not like, even if they came from my father. She resisted being dominated. My mother got easily angered and would flare up if you did things that displeased her. She was, however, very generous, and whenever it was possible for the family to share something with others, she would gladly do so.
That was another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motswenyane. The book is available online on www.kmmr.co.za, KMMR Publishers, and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Kumalo. Technical production, Wiseman Mangele, Nanda Koza,